Hello everyone, this is Darker Joe, and today I'm be talking about the balance patch. And honestly, this is a pretty crazy balance patch. Now, other than the fact that they revealed it like a month a month early, because I thought we are gonna see the balance patch like at the end of October type of thing, or maybe it was supposed to be or whatever. But they revealed it early, so they revealed it like a month early, and we get like double the amount of heroes we normally get, which is massive. I hope they start doing this often, where they're like buffing 16 heroes, like, or at least 15 plus heroes like every balance patch now. Or I hope it's not just a one-off thing. And even if some of them are like one or two small changes here and there, it's still a pretty big significant amount, especially when you count the amount of heroes getting buffed here. All right, so we wanted the meta to swing around a bit, to do something different. We're finally going to have something that might actually change the meta, kind of a decent amount now. So they're buffing, well, how many? Five? What's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? They're buffing 6 ML5s. Ruel of Light, SB, Soberly Armenta, Last Rider Crow, Commander Pavel, Designer a little bit, and Twist Eidolon and Charon. So the other, as far as the RGB 5s, they're buffing 5, looks like. No, 6. Melissa, Says, Elena, Mort, Yulha, and Blue Analytica. And then the 4-star heroes, they're buffing Oxlots, or kind of nerfing actually on the Oxlots, Peacemaker Furious, Veronica, and Armin. And then the artifacts is Cruel Mischief, RNL, Pure White Trust, and Hostess of the Banquet. And then they're nerfing extra turn for, well, kind of. They're making it so, we'll get to that when we get to that. It's not really big significant, but it only matters for stuff like RNL. So, and if I have the hero built, I'll go look at them. For example, Ruel. Some of the heroes I'm trying to build towards the new balance patch. So, whoops, no. Alright. So for this one, Ruel. So instead of her just healing the lowest health ally on her S1, now she's just going to heal everyone on her S1. They're going to reduce the amount she heals a little bit, though, but it's fair because it's going to heal everyone now. So in the end, you're going to definitely heal more for your team than, just one unit. Here is the crazy one. Well, actually, no. Actually, honestly, her S2 buff and her S3 buff are insane. I'm going to say this, though. People are already saying, like, oh, Mort and, Silverblade Armenta are the two winners of this patch. Honestly, I think Ruel's buffs is, like, really insane and underrated. I mean, AoE heal on S1 is huge because not many units do that. The only one I can really think of is, Desert Jewel Bazaar does that, though. But his base stats are ass. So he's, like, really squishy. And he just dies. He could just die. Someone as tanky as Ruel having this kind of a thing is really, really good. But, like, yeah, her S2 now. So it used to increase the CR of the catch by 25%. They're removing that. Now, instead of that, when you give them the barrier, I think she always gave a barrier, right? Yeah, she always gave a barrier. So when you give them a barrier, you also give them damage limit for 2 turns. For anyone who doesn't know what damage limit is, actually, let me just go. It is what Midnight Gala Lilius has. It is right here. Damage suffered in one attack does not exceed 35% max health. So basically, damage limit means that you have to 3-hit them. You cannot one-shot a unit with damage limit. You have to kill them in 3 hits. I mean, splash damage and, like, true damage, like Rimuru and, like, Karina Splash, and stuff like that, do all go through it, obviously. So, like, Rimuru so that's why Rimuru is a really strong unit into Galilius, potentially, because you could just pop it, instantly. As well as, like, burning them, like, if you're hit with, like, strong debuffs like burn or, like, bomb, it goes through it, obviously. So, but yeah, basically, you need to 3-tap them now. You cannot 1-tap them. And then also, since Ruel gives a barrier on top of it now, well, always gave a barrier, but gives a barrier on top of it, that means you now also have to deal with going through the barrier first. And if the barrier is like more than 35% of their max health, you might have to 4 or 5 type them. Obviously, you can just strip it away because the damage limit is not like a unique buff or anything like that. But still, damage limit's pretty huge. And obviously, you still dispel all debuffs and you heal them and give a barrier. And also, since we're here, what is the cooldown on these abilities? The S2 is on a 3-turn cooldown. Because they don't look, does not look like they change. They don't specify any increases or decreases in cooldown. So it's still a 3-turn cooldown, which is really strong. And then the S3 is on a 4-turn cooldown. I just haven't actually got around to mulling her. But yeah, so 4-turn on the S3 and 3-turn on the S2. You know what? That's pretty good. And hell, if you really want to, you can use crazy stuff like Candlestick. Just Candlestick and then you be... Alright, but like I said, yeah, damage limit is massive. And then here's the really crazy part. So the S3, there's no actual changes to the actual ability. It's still just a full thing. It fully revives a dead ally with full health and invincibility. Or you can use it on a unit that's alive, and it'll full cleanse them with fully healing them, give them invincibility. But at the start of the first battle, grants Spirit's Lord's protection to the caster. Spirit's protection, upon receiving lethal damage, revives with 50% health and combat radius increases by 50%. And it does not specify that there is a duration of this turn. So which means that you have to kill Ruel 2 times now. If they pick Ruel, you have to kill her 2 times. Unless you have like Briarwatch's area or an extinction unit to hit them. So that means that you no longer have to be like worried that like, oh, they're just gonna pop my Ruel before I can get a chance to revive a unit or type or whatever, right? Or you have to, or like the whole time, like say it's in the middle of the match type of thing and you're afraid, you wanted to use your S3 on an ally, but it's like, well, I have to heal myself, otherwise there's no point because I'm just gonna die. You don't have to worry about that now. Now you can just go like, well, I got my Spirit's Lord's protection, so I can just revive another ally, and I'll be fine because I'm not gonna get killed. I'm gonna come back at least 50% health, and then get pushed up 50%. So that means that she is really, really strong. I mean, she's also weak. Obviously, she's always been weak against Briarwatch's area with her passive, but still, I mean, if you generally build her very tanky. Like for example, mine. I'm going for a counter set on mine because to take advantage of when she counters, she's going to heal everyone. I still want her to be tanky, so I'm trying to get so once I get 1 imprint, I'll be at 20k HP. That's what I want. I want 2,000 defense, 20k HP with some ER. Obviously, having more ER would be good, but like I want to make sure I have some a lot of bulk first still, because you still want to make her tanky, and then with Water's Origin. I could do Candlestick though. I was thinking about it, but I'm probably just gonna do Water's Origin just to give a bit more survivability for her. Her speed isn't really crazy, but like, I mean, worst case, I'll have her go last on my team, just revive a unit that they killed, and then I'll be fine. And then with Water's Origins, like push, like they try to cleave me type of thing. I'm probably gonna push up above my other units, and I'll just revive a unit that died. So yeah, that's how I have her built. I think she is going to be a monster of a unit though, and outside of dealing with like Briarwatch's area or extinction units, which honestly there isn't that many strong extinction units out there. This would have been a good time to buff Lilibet, the Earth Lilibet, by the way, Smilegate. But maybe next balance patch. Maybe next balance patch if she becomes insane. Obviously, there's still also Blood Moon Haste, which also has revives. That's insane too. Maybe that's the time for them to buff Lilibet. And this should be a strong extinction unit that she should have been. Now, SBA is what people are saying is probably the second winner. They said people are saying Mort is the main winner, then SBA is the second winner. I'd argue that Ruel might be on par with SBA's buff. But let's see SBA. I'll go to her, that I have her built too. SBA's buff is pretty crazy though. Alright, so what did SBA get? So she used to push up by 25% every time that she uses her secondary attack from her from her S1. Like she would S1, and if she hits a burn unit, or if she hits a burn unit with her S1, then she'll do her little like AoE flame release, and then she'll push herself up with 25%. Now she's losing that 25% CR push off that situational release. But now when she does her, flame release, instead of pushing up, she just immediately detonates it. So basically now if they hit you and then you counterattack, which I still think counter set is by far her best set, you just counter them, hit them with a burn, use flame release, and then pop it immediately. Which, so now it gives her way more, she's more scary throughout the match type of thing, instead of just going but if you're saying like, oh, I like the CR push. Well, they're also getting rid of her CR push when an ally does an AoE attack. So she no longer gets that CR push for when an ally AoEs. But which is fine, because that was only for like a 1 in every 3 turns type of thing anyways. So first of all, she's at the start first battle, she increases attack proportional to her effectiveness, which is huge, because obviously if you're going to go counter set, which I think is, like you said, her best set, you probably want to make sure you have at least some speed. You want to have a lot of health, a lot of defense, and a lot of effectiveness. Then like you're like, well, now you need attack, and then like it's kind of hard to get that off. So now you can get a lot of your attack off your effectiveness. The rate increase effect does not change after it's activated, which means there's nothing in this game that like lowers effectiveness, of allies or enemies type of thing. So there's nothing to worry about for that part. But like, I guess that in case you're like, oh, someone give me effectiveness buff. Death to Array gives me effectiveness buff, and then no, it does not increase the amount of attack that she gets. It's just based off of that start. And then when an ally, except for the caster, ends their turn, it increases her combo range by 15%. So now she pushes up 15% just plain. You don't need to combo her with an AoE unit. And there's no duration on here. There's no saying a once per turn, or there's no once per turn, and there's no every X amount of turns type of thing. Every time an ally ends their turn, she pushes up. So that means you're going to see freaking annoying people with like Rand. They're going to go like S2 push up 15%, S3 push up 15%. So that's why I'm saying speed is still pretty good on her, because you still want some speed on her, because that means you could just super heavily combo. And then her S3. First of all, they're lowering her cooldown, her S3. Her S3 used to be a 5-turn cooldown. Now it's going to be a 4-turn cooldown. They're also making it so they're just giving it a 100% chance now. So now it used to be 65%. I think it goes up to 75 right here. Now it's just straight up 2 turns in the stun. Yeah, now it's just all 100% chance. So she's a push up. She's gonna be way more easier to She's way more easier to draft. You don't have to draft her into heavy AoE teams, or you don't have to draft her into an AoE team. She's gonna combo well with that. She's gonna be very scary, because she's gonna have this, and she's still gonna. And now she has a 100% chance to burn, double burn, and stun. Like, I have her on here. I have her on counter set. I have her on immunity. I think this is a really good build. I'm trying to see if I can get squeezed in to make 18k HP at some point, but 1800 defense, 17k HP, so pretty decently bulky with 193 speed on counter set. So it's, again, she'll push up pretty easily. At 134 effectiveness. I would have liked to make it more, but I'm not using an effectiveness ring. So I'm like, hey, using a health ring and still having 134 effectiveness is pretty good. So I'll take it. Only 2,000 attack though, but and again, effectiveness is going to also go into attack as well. Let's assume even if I only get like 1,000 extra attack from my effectiveness, which maybe it might be like that. Maybe it's like every 10 equals like 100 attack or something like that. So it might be like, if that was the case, I'd probably get 3,300 attack. Like, yeah, and I put her on Abyssal Crown just for because when you S1 into Flame Release, it's just a lot of chances to proc stuns on top of her S3 as well. People will be using stuff like Fairy Tail Tenebra's artifact is pretty good, but I'm already using it. So Last Rider Crow. I've had Last Rider Crow built for a while. I'm sure people have probably seen me use it in my maybe not ER gang itself, but this is how I have him built. Pretty solid ER for an HP scaling knight, and then okay, like some speed with some pretty good bulk. Arius obviously. So his changes is pretty simple. His changes is probably one of the lower ones, but it is gonna definitely be a pretty decent one. So how it used to be a 1-turn barrier when you get hit by an AoE. Now it's a 2-turn barrier when you get hit by AoE, which is nice. Not big enough to make him like a better meta unit. This part would be actually. They're increasing the cooldown of his S3 by 1, so now it's instead of a 7-turn cooldown, it is an 8-turn cooldown. But they're also making it so you decrease skill cooldowns by 1 when you use the S3. So you press S3, you lower your cooldowns of himself and the allies by 1. Which means that he actually could be very, very strong and a counter into Noctwell as well. Because, I mean, I would say somewhat a counter into Noctwell. Because, yes, Noctwell presses S3, it resets everyone on your team. Obviously, he doesn't reset Last Rite of Krog, because Last Rite of Krog's passive proc, and he gets the reduced cooldown anyway, so he doesn't get reset. But then Noctwell could just S1 your Last Rite of Krog and silence him. And push him back so that you don't get a chance to use S3 still. That's what I'm saying. That's kind of a counter because like as far as fighting it in like arena or like Guild Wars, yes, 100% it is. He definitely counters Noctwell now. But like people will probably just press S3 into the S1 and just S1 him, and then silence you. And because I believe it was silence, right? S1 was silence from Noctwell. But then again, that does mean that you force them not to press S2 with Noctwell, so you don't get sealed. So she doesn't seal one of your units. So I guess this trade-off is like, do they want to seal one of your units, or do they want to stop your Last Rite of Krog from getting rid of the reset? But yeah, it'd be pretty. It's gonna definitely help him out. I think he might start seeing some play in the meta now. But his problems are still going to be there, though. He still gets one-tapped by, Galililius. He still heavily struggles in this massive injury meta right now. Because, like, literally, I played, like, 300 matches in preseason, and I was an Emperor. Pretty much almost every match, you're going to fight a Death Dealer Ray. Currently in the meta right now. Like, Death Dealer Ray was probably the most picked unit I've ever fought. And I was getting to the point, like, I wanted to pre-ban him because I'm just tired of seeing him. Like, the 300 matches I played in preseason, I probably fought, like, 290 fucking Death Dealer Rays. Because he is in every game in existence. I swear to God. If you're fighting Cleave unit, you're fighting Cleave team, or they're going to pick Death Dealer Ray. So, that's why, like, HP stacking units like this is going to struggle heavily because Death Dealer Ray is one of the most broken units in the game right now. So, and Death Dealer Ray just makes this unit completely shit. Unless you're doing ER gang. Like, for example, I didn't care about, I was picking, like, a lot of, like, I could pick Last Rite of Krog into Death Dealer Ray and probably still do really well with my, because I just ban protect Maid. And if Death Dealer Ray does not land any injury via, Venom via his buff, then it doesn't stop me. The only thing I really had to watch out was ML Shu, but yeah, I think he's still going to struggle in this meta, but he's definitely going to have a bit more of a place now. I think he actually you actually have a chance to go, hey, maybe I want to pick him instead of a Tywin. Ambitious Tywin would still be better overall, but I still think Last Rite of Krog would have a place now because of this. Commander Pavel. Not a big change. I do have him built. I had him built for a bit, but the way I built mine was kind of a bruiser side, not crazy attack. Just a little bit tanky so he doesn't just die to the first AoE hit. Because honestly, all they're doing is making his S3. His S3 used to be his S3 soul burn used to be like it decreases the cooldown by 2. Now it's going to be increased damage. So I mean, it's not really going to change him much. He's still going to be the same old. He's still going to be same played. I think he's not going to like. This isn't going to make people want to play him more. I don't think. Maybe, but Dilibet, one of my favorite units in the game, and a unit I would absolutely love using more. Finally getting buffed after almost 3 years. Because I remember almost 3 years ago, Dilibet and Lilibet both got buffed in the same patch. And then they never got buffed again. Almost 3 years. So you're finally getting her buff. Is it enough? Well, let's see. They're dropping a silence off her S1, and instead they're giving her Death Break. And now, instead of her S1 just being a 100% chance to proc the silence, it's not going to be a 100% chance to proc Defense Break, and it goes to 2 turns. It is a buff to her, but there are definitely times where I won matches because I was able to lock down certain units because of silence. So it kind of sucks though, because I do like silence, and silence is a very, very strong ability to have, debuff to have. And like nowadays, almost everything's gonna have Death Break now. Like Death Break is everywhere. They're just spamming people with Death Breaks now. So it's like, I kind of wanted the silence more, but this does allow her to like, because there are definitely matches where I just have, my Dilibet's alive, Owen went live on my team, and it's like I want to be able to actually like solo, because like I'd be facing like 2 units and I would have like Dilibet on my side. It'd be like I can't solo them because Dilibet doesn't do enough damage. It's like, well, actually this will allow you to get a chance to help solo into the mid game now, which I think that's. And there are definitely times where it's like, well, your opponent used other abilities, so who cares about silence, because they're just going to S1 anyway. So, I mean, I can see it, though. Like I'm saying, it is a buff. 100% it's a buff. But there are definitely times you prefer to silence over the Death Break. But I think there are probably more times you'd prefer to Death Break. So, and then her S2. So they're just making it so she gets, she gets immunity now as well. So once her passive procs and she pushes up and it gets defense buff, she gets immunity as well. Definitely gonna be useful for sure, because there are times people will proc Dilibet and then they'll just stun her or push her back or whatever. Now they're gonna have to have a unit that they're gonna use a unit. Let's say they use Ran, right? And then they're not gonna be able to just like hit her with another debuff afterwards, unless it's another stripper with it. So definitely gonna be useful. I don't think that's gonna be a big enough change. Honestly, I think they should have gotten rid of the whole fighting spirit, just like they did with Lionheart Hermia, because her problems are still gonna be the same thing. She still gets 100% destroyed by Mage Luna, New Moon Luna. She still gets destroyed by Palladis. She still gets destroyed by Emma Palladis. She still gets destroyed by Alvira. Fire Palace even cuts her. Fire Palace and Abyssal Eupheme both also massively lower her down too. So she still struggles with those units though. She kind of needs to give her fighting spirit. At least she could still S3 though. So it's not like as bad as Lionheart Hermia, where she came in S3. I hope you guys can't hear that. People are outside doing stuff outside. All right. S3. Now, increases the counter all except for, okay, so, that's right. So, she used to only, when she uses her S3, she used to only push up the ally. She would not push herself up. Actually, a lot of times I didn't even notice about that before, too. Now, she pushes up everyone, including herself, and she's getting 50% defense pen. But they're decreasing her damage, her actual, damage on here. Here's the thing, it's kind of a trade-off, though, because that means Dilibet is going to do absolutely no damage if they have Il'Nov, ML Il'Nov on their team. Then again, you probably wouldn't be drafting Dilibet into someone who drafts Il'Nov, because if they're drafting Il'Nov, they're probably going like a more standard tank down team. And you probably wouldn't be picking someone like Dilibet into a standard tank down team. You generally pick Dilibet into like a heavy debuffing team or a cleave team. So I guess that's, and then like as far as cleave team goes, while it depends on how much they decrease her damage by, this definitely could just make it so she could do a massive amount of damage to like the squishy units, on top of also doing pretty solid damage into bruisers. So we're going to see how much they change it, but they've generally been pretty good with the amount of like decrease in stats to add pen. Like for example, when they lowered down this Blue Shoes damage on her S2 and gave her pen, it was generally pretty solid, a solid amount. Like it was like, oh, okay, so you did pretty good balance of figuring out how to make it so that it will do more damage type of thing. They've been pretty good at that. I think they also did with I think they did with Fire Ravi in the past. Like when I don't know if Fire Ravi has pen. She doesn't have pen on her S3 anymore. But when they made it her S3 have pen back then, before her recent buffs, Fire Ravi was actually doing pretty good with that. So I think they're pretty good with the whole balancing, like lowering damage to add pen. So I'm okay with that. We'll have to see though. But like I said though, if they draft Il'Nov, expect to literally do no damage because which honestly means that just in general, because how strong Il'Nov is and how rampant like pen is of some nature, I think going into the next season, especially when these buffs hit, I think my two pre-bans will probably be New Moon Luna and Il'Nov, ML and Il'Nov. Unless one of these units are so broken I have to pre-ban them. I don't know. Like I think I might be banning Il'Nov as my secondary pre-ban. Oh yeah, sorry. I didn't even show you guys how I have. I mean, my Dilibet has been the same build I've had for like 3 years. I think actually, this is the same. This is how I had her built the whole time. 2045 defense, just almost 18k HP, solid speed for destruction set, a good crit damage. I'm gonna have her same exact build. I was thinking about if I ever pull a second Dilibet, I was thinking about building a second Dilibet for like a 260 speed, no damage but effectiveness build, which I think would still be pretty good actually. I might still do that. If I ever pull a second Dilibet, I'll do that. I love Dilibet. Alright, so Kayron, ML Kayron. Here's one I think also is quite insane too that I don't think people are talking about. They're like, it's fine. He's gonna do he needs too much. I'm like, yeah, that's why you don't build him damage. If you're using him for arena, yeah, it's fine. You can go lifesteal damage build and stuff because you can just make it so you can just give them like Shooting Star Arcadius' revive, immortality buff, and you're fine, right? But like as far as RTA goes, I think in RTA, people are underestimating how strong a no damage but an insane bulk with ER build on him. Him plus Maid is like broken as hell. I'm sure you guys seen the amount of all the matches I've had with him. He carries like I've probably used him like 40 or 50 times in preseason, and I had like a 70% win rate with him. Like he is broken as hell on this build. You just go tank. You just go as tanky as you can with as much ER as you can. I didn't have a crazy amount of ER because I want to make sure I had him insanely bulky. I mean, I had a protection set on there just to be funny too. So I'm like, yeah, I'll give him my Bastion then. So he only has 208 ER, but I mean I put him with Maid Chloe, so he gets an extra 54 ER off of Maid Chloe, so he technically has over 260 ER with Maid Chloe. And 260 ER is pretty solid. And then if I count anyone else, like Crimson Armor gives ER to everyone. My Rimuru gives ER to everyone. So it's like by adding other units, that he might have close to 300 ER. So, but like, yeah, all you need to do is just rely on that 10k true damage that he gets which doesn't take as long as you think it does, honestly. And with these buffs, oh my god, that build is going to be broken as hell. So basically, there's no actual changes on here, except for the fact that his damage will be increased during counterattack. So when he counterattacks, he'll do a little more damage. I think that's the only change. I think they just worded everything differently. That's why it looks different here. I don't think there was any real changes. Yeah, I think just word changes here. It's just damage dealt increases during counterattack. So if you are doing a damage build, if you're able to do a damage build, cool, you do more damage. Like I said, the reason why I don't do a damage build is because, can you imagine how hard it is? How impossible it is to get really solid attack, really solid defense and HP on him with having okay attack and then having crit chance and crit damage and ER. This is why until they give him free stats somewhere, like they give him, free effect resistance, or they give him more crit rate or more attack type of thing, he cannot afford to go like a damage build in RTA. Like I said, in Guild Wars or in Arena, you can, because you can easily play around your opponent, the opponent being AI, right? You can force around it, or just basically give him, Shooting Star Arcades, immortality buff. You can't really do that in RTA. They'll just, if they see you pick MLK run plus Shooting Star Arcades, they're just gonna ban Shooting Star Arcades. And if you ban Protect Shooting Star Arcades and then pick K-Ron, they're just gonna ban K-Ron. That's just how it's gonna go. Or they'll use some units that they're like, oh, I see that. Okay, so I'm gonna use a unit that can soul burn guaranteed ignore effect resistance. And then you're like, well, I'm screwed. They'll just do that. So that doesn't work. So outside of that, it's the only way they can make him work on a damage build in RTA. But that's not going to work. So on a bulky build like this, because before you say like, oh, I have like 16k HP and like 1100 defense on my damaged K-Ron. Yeah, that still dies in one hit. 16k HP plus 1100 defense, that still dies in one hit, especially when we have an insanely high amount of units in this game that ignores defense pen, that just has defense pen in there. You may do solid damage on the S1, but you're never going to proc the amount of damage you want on S3. I mean, you're never going to proc his S3, unless of course so the only way you can reliably use him would be like, if I see your opponent use like no hard damage dealing units, right? And then you're like, you build him, you play him like you would play Dark Corvus. When your opponent doesn't pick anything that has a massive damage dealing on it, I'm gonna pick some mitigation knights and then pick him, and then like, well, they're just gonna ban him then. You're never gonna get him off. That's what I'm saying. I think a full tank one is how you do it, and especially after this. So his S2 now. It used to push up 50% when he had his max. When his Fighting Spirit hits max, he'll get 50% CR push. Now he pushes up 100%. So now there's literally no reason why. Because there was a few times where I'm like, I would play, I'll be at like 80 or 90 focus or Fighting Spirit, and I would see like I really need to use like I really want to wait until I hit 100, hit 100 and then pop it. But like by the time that happens, even the 50% CR push won't push enough. Like I'll push up to, but they'll have their units go off before me, and I'll get screwed over and I'll die. Or they might kill some primary unit on my side. It's like, well, nope, not anymore. The second you hit 100, you're basically guaranteed the next turn. And even if they have something like, Fire Palatus or Abyssal Youth Fiend, and that cuts it in half, that'd still be 50% CR push. So... And here's the big one. Okay, so they're increasing the cooldown of his S3, which kind of does suck for the tank one, because there are times where I'm like, I might use it, because there are times where on my full tank one I had to use 2 of his S3s to kill, especially if they're using really tanky units like Laya or Apocalypse Ravi or Fire Ravi even sometimes. Like they'll use like these units that are over 26,000 health. It's like, well, they're increasing the cooldown by 1, which is actually, honestly, that's actually fine, because by the time you hit the next set of 100 Fighting Spirit anyways, you're probably gonna be you're probably waiting on by the time your cooldown gets off by the time you get off cooldown anyways, you're waiting on the next set of a Fighting Spirit anyways. But now they're increasing the Fighting Spirit from like, so it used to be 2,000 at the base, then it goes to the 10,000. Now it's 5,000 base, it goes up to 15,000. So yeah, get ready to get hit by 15,000 true damage. You let this get off, he just presses S3 and does 60,000 damage, 60,000 true damage to your opponent. That is like insane. That is crazy. I think he's going to be underrated as well. Some people are going to like, obviously he gets screwed over by Alvira, by Sea Phantom Politis and by New Moon Luna, and obviously you can take advantage of him by stuff like Angel of Light, by Lionheart Sirmia, by Biblis. There are units you could take advantage of fighting him. Or Rowana, Green Rowana, kind of Green Rowana, I guess, because yeah, you're gonna heal, but if you don't have anything to beat this Kayron's still gonna smack your entire team for 15k each. And obviously, with a mitigation knight, the knight's gonna take like 2,000 or 3,000 off of everyone, so everyone will take like 12 to 13,000 damage, but then their mitigation knight will take like 24,000. Or something like that. Oh my god. So yeah, he's gonna be quite insane. Melissa. So Melissa is losing the damage proportion of the lost health part of her S2. So she used to do like the lower health she is, the more damage her S2 does. They're removing it, but they're increasing the damage dealt. So they're basically usually when they do this, so that means that the maximum damage, let's say the damage you do at like 1% health or 1 health, is probably just basically being added to her base, her just general S2. So now she's going to do probably her maximum damage all the time. That's probably how it's going to be. And then her one of her options was like the one that gives increased attack to all allies except for the caster. Now it's going to go to increase attack of the caster when using Blood Bloom. So once she uses S3, I don't know if this is going to proc before the S3. Like, I don't know if you're going to use S3 and you get attack buff while you're doing it. So I don't know if the attack buff is going to count for it. But even if it doesn't, what you do is you obviously give her book. She soul burn S3 onto a primary unit. You want to make sure you strip and then curse. And then you get attack buff. And then you S to a different unit with attack buff now. So, but she does lose the giving an attack buff to the team, though. But I guess if you want to use a mage that does that, just pick Tama Luluka. Well, that's how I had Melissa built for a while. You probably with this build with this buff though, you probably want to make her faster though, like 260 speed. But I have her on a full damage build instead, with some speed. 215 speed is not bad. Any CR push will be enough to basically push her up to the next turn. So, speed pen, almost 300% crit damage with 4,500 attack. I think I actually have the exact one too. Yeah, cool. So I don't even have to worry about switching. It'll just automatically switch to that one. So, perfect. So yeah, Sez is also going to be a really strong unit as well. Get ready for Sez to be used in Cleave and used as a bridge. And yeah, so the Sez. Oh, here. Okay, so wait. Dark Shadow. Awaken, yeah. So Sez used to have the whole, when he S1's a unit that has like 50% or less, he'll proc his encroach thing, which he'll AoE and do unhealable on them, right? So they're basically removing this part where he used to his encroach part back into his passive. So now his S1 is just gonna be the normal. It deals damage and does unhealable, and then damage down increased proportion of lost health. Is that always on this one? Oh, okay, it was, yeah. So basically, his S1's going back to just being. They're just taking the encroach part into his S2, but they're also getting rid of his stealth when he's hit. So he's no longer gets that stealth now. But now his encroach part is when an ally, except for the caster, attacks and a target is 30% or less, then you activate encroach, which does the AoE. It's going to be practical once every 3 turns instead of once every turn, like how it used to be for him. But his encroach does, AoEs him and pushes himself up by 30%. So basically now you do 70% of someone's health or kill them, because it works for you kill them. For example, if I pick someone like, they pick Galilius and I go my Shoutir and I just use Shoutir to one-shot the Galilius, then Sez should still proc off of that and just S2s, does some solid damage, some solid AoE damage, and then push himself up. And then he'll just S3 onto a unit that is that I feel that Sez can finish off, and then Sez Bomb blows up the whole team. So yeah, get ready for that, because if you're playing a squishy, or if you have a squishy unit on your team and you're fighting like a Rand, I think Rand Sez is going to be kind of broken, because people are going to go like, oh, I'm going to use Sez, I'm going to use Rand Silver and S3, and if you have anyone squishy enough they get hit down to 30% health from Rand S3, then Sez is going to S2 on your entire team with that's Def broken, and then push up 30%, and then be able to S3 a unit, and then Sez Bomb is going to one-shot you. So, yeah, get ready for another good combo unit with Rand. Honestly, I think Violet, Green Violet might actually have a comeback, because if Sez plus, if with obviously like Rand's always been an annoying unit that's always been meta, but like especially now with that potential though, like Rand Sez combo might actually make Violet be a more popular unit now. I think at least. Wait. Yeah, 30% or less. That should count for when you kill a unit. So if I use someone like, if I use my Milim, my speed Milim will go and just will either kill a unit or lower it down to like basically no health, and then Sez procs off of that. So yeah, Sez is gonna be pretty damn strong. So get ready for that. This is how I have Sez as well. Oh, speaking of that, I gotta switch. I had Basket on her, but now with this nerf to extra turn, I'm gonna have to switch her off RNL. As far as this one goes, I could do Basket on him. I don't know what I'm gonna do exactly, but this is how I have him built though. I had him built like this for about a month, I say. I haven't used him yet, but I think with this buff, he's gonna be pretty damn insane. So I think this is actually a pretty solid build, I think, for him. I just need one more imprint. I need to decide if I want to go portrait, or I want to go basket on him. I don't have any more baskets though, but 245 speed, that 30% CR push is going to push him up to basically the next unit anyways. So yeah, he's going to be pretty damn insane. Because remember though, his Sez Bomb is what, 90% of his attack. So even if I don't have attack buff, I just have 3700 attack. Not 90. It's my bad. It's 150, because I remember it's the full amount, right? Yeah, I think it's like it's 150% of its attack. So remember, it's the amount plus that. So a 3700 attack should do upwards of like 5.5 to like almost 6,000 on Sez Bomb. That's without attack buff too. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I think it's 150%. Right? Well, I don't know. I'll see. Elena dispels one buff off of the S3 is being dispels one additional debuff off the S3 is now being switched over to dispel one debuff off the S2. So people are saying that they don't like that, because you could have used like a two. I think people were using her into like Luna, Luna on defenses or on Guild Wars. You fight like you use like a 240 to 260 Elena probably, and then you're on I think you probably go on Soul Constellation, and then they use a debuff. It pushes her up, and then you use S3, and then back then you'd be able to cleanse off 2 debuffs off of them, and then you cleanse off both the seal and the unbuffable, and you basically just nullify the whole existence of Luna on AI defense. That doesn't work that anymore. Now you just do 1 debuff when you proc the. I mean, this is not terrible, because it allows you to basically 100% cleanse if you have Doctor's Back on her. Now she 100% cleanses off of any opener. Let's say they go Briarwatch Hysteria, or they go Rand, and they hit your team. You have Doctor's Back plus this. It allows you to cleanse off both debuffs off of them. So basically it means that you're not a strong unit into AI, New Moon Luna, but now you're a strong unit into like Briarwatch Hysteria, or you're a strong unit into Rand. But then again, Rand isn't really used in defense, so and then Rand's probably I don't know. Rand might hold the S3 if they see you have Elena. So Rand's going to hold the S3, I should say. So I don't know. Some people are saying it's a nerf. It's arguable. Holy crap, it's 45 minutes long. I mean, this is a 16 unit buff, so of course. All right, Mort is the one that people were saying was the biggest winner. All right. So back then, his S1 used to do 50% chance of death break and ignores effect resistance if he's enraged, and he does damage based off his health. Right. So now, what does he do now in his S1? So he now does 50% chance of death break. He ignores effect resistance of anyone who has lower max health than him, and he still does increase damage based off max health, and then increasing the damage of his S1. So now, instead of having to have rage buff, so now so instead of having rage buff now, instead of needing the rage buff, I should say, you just need to make sure that your health is higher than theirs. So that's pretty crazy because that means that's going to be much easier to proc. It's like if you're... So that basically means that you're always going to be able to land Death Break. Well, I mean, there's still... I think at max it's... Is it 50% at max or is it 75 at max? But either way, it's still not 100% chance on Death Break, so... But still. And then then his S2, immune to stun and sleep, is still staying. It's just being worded to immune to debuffs which prevent movement, which is still stun and sleep. Has a 30% chance to counter... So he's losing his built-in 30%. He's losing his built-in counter set. So he no longer gets counter set built in. But Sekfor now when an ally is attacked, he gets a 20% chance to counter attack. So basically, he's losing his built-in counter set, but he's gaining built-in Elbrus. And then counterattacking has a 100% chance of. And then when he counterattacks, he procs Sacred Blessing. Sacred Blessing now, instead of giving the anti-crit now, it's going to give you a skill nullifier instead, and gives you speed to the caster. Also, all heroes except for the caster cannot counterattack. So he's the only unit in the match that can counter. So he's gonna be very strong into stuff like, Abyssal Euphine. It's very strong into stuff like, Navy Captain Landy. Anyone that you generally see always have counterattacks, which also includes stuff like Savior Aiden. Savior Aiden's attack back, that's considered a counterattack. Same with Albedo's Bicorn. That is considered a counterattack. It does not proc on. It does not work on units that have an ability that activates. For example, Magic for Friends proc from like Mercedes is considered an ability activation. Edward's AoE attack back is considered an ability activation, so it does not stop him. Rimuru's jump on you and steal or copy two buffs is an ability activation, so it does not work against him. But it'll work against basically anything else that's considered a counterattack, or it might be considered a counterattack. That's the same way as MO Elena works too. So basically, he is the RGB version of MO Elena, but even better, because he's also a bruiser, which means he's tankier. He won't just die in one hit. He also has built-in Elbrus now, and he gets your allies skill nullifier when he procs off of a counterattack. I think he only does it off a counterattack. Okay, because I don't think he does not proc anymore off of his S1, normal S1s. Also, so he's losing his injuries. Now, he does not longer get injuries. He does not get enraged, but, I mean, who cares? And so he's losing his injuries, but now he's inflicting a debuff called Fear for 2 turns, and then he always healed. And he also penetrates defense of the enemy with the highest max health by 70%. So, yeah. On top of the fact he ignores effect resistance of any targets with max health lower than him. So basically, he just S3s. He guarantees lands Fear on you, and Fear cannot act for a certain number of turns. At the start of the turn, has a 40% chance to be dispelled. And Fear is a 2-turn debuff. So yeah. Oh, they're also increasing the amount of healing he gets, and increasing the amount of damage he does. So yeah, his S3 is going to like massively chunk down a unit, like one unit on their team, whoever has the highest health, and then everyone else is going to just get hit by. Everyone else is basically just going to get feared, and then they're like, "Well, sorry." That's pretty crazy. Keep in mind though that this is ignore effect resistance on here too. So the only thing is though, we all know what's going to happen if you're when you use more on when you're using more, your opponent is just going to your opponent's like Soul Weaver or whoever has cleanse is just going to so happenly get the 40% proc and then remove it. You move it off their cleanser and then cleanse the team. We all know that's going to happen. Also, he is also heavily destroyed by injury as well, just like all HP scaling bruisers, especially in his case, because without his high HP, without having any more HP than your targets, you're not going to be able to proc stuff like like the ignore effect resistance by having more HP type of thing. But as long as you're careful against DDR, Death Dealer Ray or ML Shu, that's the two main ones you run into. That's this injury. And of course, you're not going to use Mort into a freaking Ilanov because, well, this would do literally no damage then. Because 70% pen would just get reduced. So, that's what I'm saying. Just pre-ban Luna and Ilanov every game. That's what I'm going to start doing. Because, like, there's just so many units that I would like to try out and use. But that pen resistance is insane. So, yeah. That per my two pre-bans going forward, even though Mort's going to be quite scary. Actually, I have Mort built, but I haven't changed him up to how he, to recent stuff. I did give him Holy Sack. I have to level it up more. This is my second one. My other one's on my other plus 30 Holy Sack is on Abyssal Yuvine. I do have him on injury set though. I don't know if I want to pick him on injury set or I want to put him on counter set because, like you said, he's losing his built-in counter, but he's getting built-in Elbrus. So you do not need to have him on Elbrus. I mean, you can give even more chances to proc counter and stuff if you really want to, but I think he's better off on like other artifacts than Elbrus because he already has it. So as far as the sets go, I think his three best sets would be between counter set because again he's losing his built-in counter, so it'd be counter set. Or injury set or speed set. I mean, destruction set's pretty good too, actually, because then you get a lot more damage and have more open to. It's easier for him to get good stats with that. So, I guess those 4 sets, honestly. I have my injury for now. I may try this build out on him to see how it goes, but I probably may switch him over to counter set or speed set. I'll have to see, because he does get speed buff when he procs his passive off of counter. So. And including that, his EE is that used to increase the crit resistance buff by an extra turn is going to go to that speed now. Yulha. Alright, so Yulha is a pretty straightforward one. So she used to only reflect 30% of the damage to the attacker when hit by a single attack, which is kind of rough because your opponent's never going to is never wanting to S1 as single target hit the Yulha anyways. So it's like you half the time more than half the times you're not even going to get hit by the reflect until Yulha's the last unit alive, or unless they have a unit that might potentially finish it off in a single attack. So now it's getting changed to when attacked in general. She is hit by an AoE, it reflects 40% of it now instead of 30. So 40% reflect off of all damage is pretty damn massive. She still gets the same old when she hit down to 30%. And she'll proc her passive, get a barrier that's like 30% of her freaking health, I think, and a barrier size, and push up by 25%. And then her S3 is going down 1 turn cooldown. And instead of having an extra turn soul burn, it's 10 souls for increased damage, which is even better for sure. Because like when you think about it, like like Dark Corvus. Like Dark Corvus has that kind of thing too. Like you soul burn do extra damage based off how much health he has. It's just better to have it on his too. I kind of hope they do it for Crow as well. For Blue Crow, units that have that whole like massive nuke HP based off of should always have an increased damage on soul burn. So I do have Yuha built. It's up here. This is my Yuha. Almost 1700 defense, 30k HP. Arias. I could give if I don't give Mort the Holy Sack, my second Holy Sack, I might give it to Yuha. I don't know. Because Yuha's still better with, Yuha's still pretty good knight to have with Arias, so debating if I want to have him on Arias or have her on Holy Sack. Either way, though, 30k HP with some solid defense. I think she's going to be very scary with Ice Dom. I think she always was scary with Ice Dom, but especially now with that Reflect being off of AoE as well, that's huge because look at that 190 ER, some effectiveness. I do have this maxed out. I just don't have it. Artifact terms right now are kind of rough right now, so that's what I'm thinking. I might get because I might use Ice Dom with Yulha, so I might use Holy Stack Yulha, and then have fun. Reflect 30% of the damage you deal to me on top of her passive of 40%. So yeah, she's definitely a fun unit. Blue Melodica is basically, instead of having a scaling penetration that's based off of debuffs and speed and all that stuff, now it just penetrates 50%, just straight up 50%. Which also means that now Blue Melodica, with this change, Blue Melodica is no longer destroyed against. Well, wait. Actually, let me just word that before I say that. Caster speed is greater than the target speed. Penetration defense. Okay, so the penetration rate was based off of the speed buff. Okay, you just do extra damage based off the amount of debuffs. Okay, yeah. I'm making sure because I don't. Then wait, why you need more debuffs? I don't use Blue Melodica. I don't even have her built, so. Okay, so it was based off of speed. Alright. Oh, isn't it she gets more speed based off of debuffs on your opponent or something like that? I don't know. Anyway, so she's now, instead of having up to a maximum 100%, now it's just a straight up 50%. Oh, wait, no, it still goes to the 50%. Oh, no, it was... Wait. So she penetrates defense by 50%. When the caster speed is greater than the target speed, penetrate rate increases portion of the difference up to a max. Wait, is she getting a 50% defense pen and then an up to 100% on top of it? Because penetration rate increases based off the difference up to maximum up to 100%. Or is this just damage increase based off a difference up to 100%? Because if she has 50% pen here and then she's getting an extra 100 pen, what the hell? That might actually make her insane, but okay. Maybe it's just saying hey, worst case, if you don't have a high penetration difference right here, you just go to 50%, but you can go up to 100%. That's why I'm thinking. That's how I think it's worded though. Guaranteed 50% pen at least, no matter what, but you probably can go up to the 100% like before. That's what I'm guessing. That was really worded like that because penetrates target defense by 50%, and then penetrates defense up to 100%. Like what? Oxalot's nerf. Okay, so in PvP he is getting buffed, but in PvE, well, actually not even PvP. I mean, Spirit's Breath is still pretty strong. Spirit's Breath in RTA is still pretty damn strong too. So, but basically they're increasing the cooldown from 2 turns to 4 turns. And then they're going to make his S3 now have instead of having a silence, it is Death Break. Oh, also, yeah, his S2 now will have explain weak points too, which if you don't know what that does. Well, first of all, I do have Oxalot's build. I've always had him built. I don't think I ever tried to use him in RTA. Probably because like Selene Selene exists and it's kind of hard to proc stuff like that. Explain weak points. If you didn't know what that does, it's not that one. It's this one. When attacking, increases damage dealt by 20% after attacking the effect is the spell. Basically, it makes your next attack does 20% more damage. So, yeah. It basically adds an extra 20% damage. And then his Soul Burn is now, his S3 is now Death Break up to 80% AoE Death Break. Which is pretty crazy because now, without Spirit's Breath, now you're like, well, I might as well just go Book on him now. So now you just go, you use Book and then give your, Death Break the whole team and then push up the unit with you push up your Cleave unit now. Your Cleave unit now is going to have attack buff and exploit weak points. So, it is a buff for PvP for sure. RTA, he actually might be a pretty strong unit. In PvE, though, that's what they specifically said, though, too. People are saying, like, why this is going to hurt him in PvE? Like, well, yeah, as they said over here, it's being adjusted to reduce its effectiveness in PvE while enhancing its performance in PvP. He's doing too much. He's doing too strong in, like, PvE content to the point that they're struggling to make PvE content because of his existence, with how strong he is with Spirit's Breath. So instead of nerfing Spirit's Breath, they're going to, like, well, we're just going to nerf the Oxlots, and then that way units that might use Spirit's Breath other than him would still be useful. Like, people use Spirit's Breath on, Angel of Angelica, so, they didn't want to nerf AOL Angelica because it's still a pretty strong artifact on her. So instead, they just nerf Oxlots. Yeah. Peacemaker Furious, I used to have him built. I don't have him built right now. But, like, this is actually a pretty solid buff for him, too, because back then, you would have to Soul Burn with a 100% chance. So you were forced to, because the few times I actually tried to use him out, he did okay, actually, by the way, too. He didn't do completely terrible, but we still ended up losing those matches, which is why you don't see him. But the way you would currently use Peacemaker Furious, the way I think the only way to make him viable was on his turn, you would S2, get your Indomitable buff and blah blah, and then you would have to use, and then that you would use use Leica's artifact that gives you, or Flan artifact back then will give you 10 souls, and then you would have to Soul Burn on his, when he gets his extra turn, and he'll do his S1 twice, and he'll get 5 stacks. So that basically means, because you get 3 stacks off of his S2, so you'd use S2, get 3 focus, and then on his turn, then you Soul Burn S1, boom, you get 5 stacks, and then you gotta do his, and then with that you also get pushed up 30% CR, so you'd be at the 30% CR bar, and you just pray that you're able to keep able to not get destroyed, not get debuffed into his next turn to S3. So you would be able to S3 on his second turn. That is kind of how he's still going to be played now, but now he no longer needs to have Flan artifact. Now he doesn't need to worry about Soul Burning at all. So you can use anything. You can even use Proof of Valor to help him guarantee it now. Also, instead of giving him Indomitable for 3 turns, they're giving him speed buff and defense for 2 turns. Now, the thing is, I still think that means your very first turn you might not even use S2 though, because the problem with that is you use S2, you probably lose your defense. I don't know. Would you lose defense buff? No, you will have defense buff still. I guess technically you can. All right, so you can, but then you still risk the fact you still risk your opponent stripping it, though. So I'm thinking it's kind of debatable. Do you start off the first turn using the S1, because now it says when it's on your turn you guarantee the extra attack for the same skill, as long as the catcher is buffed. So as long as you have a buff, so you go immunity set, you're fine, or you have an ally that buffs you. So now I'm thinking it's kind of like, do you press S1 on your first turn? Do you just go like, all right, my first turn I S1, get 2 stacks of focus, and then I wait around his next turn. He'll still get 30% CR push because of that, because of his double S1. Do you press S2, get defense buff, have 5 stacks, get the extra turn, and you press S3? Or do you press S2, get the defense buff and speed buff, you press S1, get the 2 more S1 procs, so you still get pushed up 30% with a speed buff, and then I think you should still have defense buff for 1 more turn, and pray your opponent doesn't hit you with debuffs or strip it to S3. So it's like, I mean, I guess if you time it, if you I guess it won't be that bad if you can figure out how to speed tune him. But his S3 now, instead of being penetration rate that increases based off the differences of his defense to the target, now he's just going to get straight up 60% defense spend. So they're not increasing his damage, but now he's making it easier for you to proc. You're guaranteed that 60% defense spend. So because of that, you know what? I think this might be good. I think he actually might have a chance to be played. He's not super laughable of a unit now. Now his artifact slot is freely open. You can use Proof of Power if you want to. You can use any artifact now. You can even use Guiding Light, which people probably did when they tried to use him anyways. But now he's guaranteed able to get his his S3 off on his second turn. Is just now, do you press S1 and just wait it out and just so you can guarantee know that you can get keep the defense buff, especially if your opponent has a lot of strips? Or do you press the S2 on his first turn and pray and pray that speed buff will allow you to take that next turn? So yeah. Veronica, I can't show you Veronica because I don't actually have her at all because I'm not completely finished with the episode 5, or I might have. No, I don't think I have Veronica. No. But basically, instead of being a 20% Sierra push when someone's turn ends when there's immortality, it's a 50% push. So now she's a much more unit that you can use into like Bloodmoon Karen. The new Amiki now is pretty scary. So yeah, immortality is hopefully going to not be as scary now. With this, I do need to, and this actually allows her a bit more on. Like might be able to pull her off into, on a standard team now too, not just a cleave. Now she's not just strictly a cleave unit. Now she could be probably used on a standard team. Armin. The only change Armin has is instead of it being 20% chance to reduce single attack by 20% single attack reduction, it is now a 30% single target reduction. So it doesn't do a massive change for damage. Well, it does, but like this is how I have mine built. But this actually allows her to maybe be used. I might build a second Green Armin and give her Aureus and make her just not a damaged one, but just a straight up like damage mitigation. Because 30% damage mitigation for single target, which unless you're facing cleave, you're gonna fight single target. Like that's gonna happen. It's very, very common. Most units out here are single target. So, like I said, unless you're facing cleave. So 30% damage reduction is massive. Plus, she still has her built-in 30% counter rate. So if you go for like a mitigation Green Armin instead of a damage Green Armin, you can also go for some effectiveness too. Because remember though, her S2 has a 35% chance to stun, and she has built-in counter. And you can even give her a counter set you want to as well. Her S3 is not terrible too. Wasn't it just a shield and defense buff? Yeah, a defense buff and shield. Does she heal too? Or she heals herself, right? I think it might be one of her E's, I think, right? Either way, most of the time, and the damage one doesn't even use the S3 usually. Well, I mean, they do if they ever get the turn, but yeah, like 30% single target damage reduction is pretty massive, so you might see her be used as a full tank mitigation knight at some point too, because she's a better mitigation knight than Albedo technically now, because Albedo is what, 20%? Isn't Albedo just 20% for crit? Yeah, 20% for crit, but it could be anything, right? Whereas Green Armin is just 30% as long as it's a single target. Well, it will be 30% as long as it's a single target. So, yeah. Now the artifact. So, Crew Mischief, Hall Trials damage from 1530 to 20 to 40. Okay. Pure White Trust used to be whenever you use a non-attack skill, increases speed of the caster and increases critical hit damage on the next attack by up to 30. Now it's the same thing, except for you get 10 souls, and it is a 50 to 100% chance to get crit damage buff. So crit damage buff, I think, is 60% damage increase. So it's double the amount of damage on here, and you get 10 souls. So there's not many warriors that can really proc that off. It's like some people are saying Lionheart Sirmia would be very, very strong with that actually. Because now you think about it, Lionheart Sirmia, you get when you proc your passive, you get 10 souls. So that means when you do your S3, you get you have the 10 souls for the soul burn, and you get a crit damage buff, which means that you're going to do some massive amount of damage. So yeah, also would still be pretty good for Zahak, but I think Zahak's still better with like Symbol of Unity and stuff. RNL is getting an increased attack by 10%, but in the end, it's getting somewhat not nerfed, but nerfed with specific units. Increases effect. So Hostess is going from 20 to 40 ER, and when attacking, if target's health is 50% or more, you get 8 to 16% more damage. Now it is when attacking increases damage by, you guarantee the 5 to 10% increased damage now, but when their health is 50% or more, you get additional damage. So if they're over 50% health, basically you can get up to 18% instead of 16%. But now if they're under 50% health, you still get up to 10% damage increase. So basically, it makes you always get some damage bonus, so which is always good. And then they're nerfing extra turns with correlation with other artifacts type of thing, like Butterfly Mandolin and RNL. So basically that means rejoice everyone, RNL Rand can't hurt you anymore. They can't hurt you anymore. They can't press S2, get an extra turn, press S3, and then double S1 you anymore. It's no more. You're fine. You just get, now you can just only get hit by S2, S3, S1 at the very most. You're fine. He's not gonna hurt you anymore. Thank God. I'm actually getting tired of that shit. So yeah, basically for anyone who doesn't actually know how it works, though, RNL and Mandolin, when their extra turn was proc, if you procced off of another unit that had an extra turn on their skill, like RNL, like Rand, if Rand S2'd and it procs RNL, he would have guaranteed two turns coming up now. That's how it was. They're making it so it doesn't stack like that. So now you just get one turn. You just get the one turn. So basically, if you use Rand and you use your extra turn and you procs RNL, it just fizzes out the RNL proc. So you only get that one extra turn. Because of that, they're recalling RNL. I could. What's the? What do you get exactly for Limit Break? Oh, do you just not? Oh, you just get. Wait, I want to see what you get back. Oh, okay. Anyways, I don't know if I want to recall it. I do have RNL. Like I said, it's on my Ice Karen, but it's pretty high upgraded though. I could do it. There's still some uses I can probably find for RNL though, but yeah, maybe I will. It depends on what I can get off of it. I want to see if I can get if I get a selector and then I get like specific bottles. I could get like bottles with it. I might do it because that'd be really cool. All right. Either way, this was a long ass one. It was an hour and 13. This is the longest video I've done for a bounce patch. But I mean, this is 16 freaking units and some artifacts. So yeah, pretty crazy. Basically, to go down like this. Do I think any of these units? So I think the way that the meta is going to evolve, it's going to honestly be. There's definitely going to be some strong aggro cleave as well, getting buffed up here, especially with, like I said, especially with Sez being with buff like that. You might start seeing Mort be used in cleave as well because he can guarantee that he locks down your team as well as stops counters. So it how you would see cleave units use Emma Elena, they'll use Mort instead. He won't have his built-in CR push. He won't have any built-in CR push like Elena would. So he's not a bridge at least, but he does stop. But you can definitely build him on a fast speed. You don't even have to build him on damage. You can just build him on like a fast speed with as much HP as you can. Just immediately lock down all your opponents and then stops them from counterattacking. So yeah, I mean, It still won't work against Dilibet though. So Dilibet is gonna be pretty strong too. If Mort gets using cleave a lot, Dilibet's at least gonna be able to counter it because the fear debuff, as far as I know, isn't going to be shouldn't be a unique debuff. So you should be able to cleanse it off with units that have a cleanse. While the fear debuff will lock down Dilibet, Dilibet will push up because she will cleanse herself anyway. So, I mean, I don't know. Does cannot perform action mean that you can't self cleanse from Dilibet? We'll have to see. Mort's a very scary unit actually. Anyone who doesn't have Mort, probably grab one through the one of the selectors because he's gonna be he's kind of nuts. So we'll have to see. Ruel is definitely going to be a massive, massive powerhouse. She's finally way better than Destina now. I mean, yes, Destina revives everyone and stuff, but like Ruel being able to revive a unit to full health while also guaranteeing that she won't die instantly type of thing. On top of that, the top of damage limit on S2 is huge. So yeah, SBA is going to also be a very, very, very scary unit for debuff. Debuff meta is still going to be really, really rampant. Again, that's why Dilibet's probably gotten buffed too, because they're like, hey, we get some kind of cleanser here. So, Last Rider Crow is going to have some more usability and might potentially be good into Noctwell. So, we'll have to see that. Still be destroyed by all the injury units in the game. Still be destroyed by Galililius and stuff. And still completely useless into damage-wise, still completely useless into Il'Anab because Il'Anab will cut his damage down by massive amounts too. So be careful about when you pick him. But Pavel isn't really going to get that big of a change. He'll still be the same old, same old. Dilibet, like I said before, definitely going to be more viable for sure, but will still be locked down by a lot of these anti-fighting spirit units and stuff. But with the meta probably shifting towards a bit more debuff heavy centric with like more fear with SBAs, more easily accessible burns and stuff. I think she's definitely going to have a place for sure. ML Caron is going to be a massive powerhouse as well. I think at a full bulky team, bulky Caron's going to be scary. Melissa, we'll have to see. Depends on how much more damage Melissa's going to do. Says definitely be strong into this. Into with cleave, I don't know. We're gonna see exactly how often people are gonna use that. Elena isn't really much of a buff. Like I said, Mort's crazy. Yulha, it's gonna be definitely more fun to use. 40% damage reduction, 40% damage reflect from everything is massive. She's also be very scary on either Arius or on Holy Sack. So Ludica just get a little more consistency, I guess you could say. Oxalots was nerfed. Peacemaker Furious, well, might be potentially decent and usable now. Veronica's basically got better into immortality units, and then Armin has potential to be used as an Arius holder now, basically, I think. But just in general, 30% mitigation for single target, it's still really good. So, yeah. Alright, that was a long ass bite. So, I will probably upload this later. I'll probably upload this today on Monday as well. So I will see you guys. I actually can't wait for this. This is going to be really massive. A really huge bounce patch. So I'll see you guys next video.